Because I offered you the job, you don't want it, but you offered it to yourself and you kept it for last 20 years you've been doing it.
Because you offered it as a job, man. When it's a
Okay.
job, then I have to think about whether that job is worth my time.
Shrikant, if Jeff Bezos is walking and there is $100 lying on the road there, is it worth his time to bend down and pick it up?
Of course, it is $100. Why wouldn't $100 be worth his time to bend down and pick up?
It takes him 10 seconds to pick up.
Yeah.
Do you know how much Jeff Bezos makes in 10 seconds?
Oh.
Far more than $100, right? So it is just, I mean, he could be doing much more useful things with his time.
With those 10 seconds.
Those 10 seconds, right?
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but when you put it that way, it makes sense.
And this concept
he's
applies
losing money by picking up those $100.
Absolutely, right? So this concept applies to you also, except that you don't know the dollar value of your time. So that's what we are going to discuss today. But before we get to that, I'm going to make Shrikant an offer he will refuse.
Oh, not the Godfather then.
Yes, opposite of the Godfather. So Shrikant, I'm going to offer you a part-time job.
The demon father.
Right? So the part-time job is this, that whenever I'm buying something, right, I will just decide what I want. I will not do any price comparison anywhere. I'll not do any haggling. I'll just, whatever is the first price that they say, I say I'm willing to pay this, except that at that point I turn it over to you. And I say, now you do price comparisons, you do whatever haggling, just get me the same item, and whatever you manage to save, you can keep it, right? But I'm not going to do it for like big ticket items like car or fridge, right? All like the vegetables and the rickshaw and like a book that I buy and things like that.
So you want me to haggle down a 50 rupee auto rickshaw ride or a 100 rupee auto rickshaw ride down to 80 rupees?
And keep the difference. You get the money.
20 rupees?
Yes.
For haggling?
Yes.
No, thank you.
Why do you not want this job, Shrikant? What is wrong? You're getting money.
20 rupees.
Well, whatever. Sometimes it's a little more.
Or 5 rupees if it is kothmir and masala and what. No, I'm not. Naveen, no. You already said I'm going to refuse it. I'm refusing it. You are right.
Tell me why.
Because it's not worth my time.
But in your daily life, you do exactly the same things. You spend exactly the same amount of time to save exactly the same amount of money. So, just because I offered you the job, you don't want it, but you offered it to yourself and you kept it for last 20 years you've been doing it.
Because you offered it as a job, man. When it's a job, then I have to think about whether that job is worth my time.
Correct.
But when I do it, I am doing it for myself. I'm doing it in my non-job time. That's the difference.
Oh, because you enjoy haggling?
Kind of. It's who doesn't?
Right. So, unless you are a weirdo like, well, not Shrikant. I know people who enjoy haggling. Okay,
it's fun.
But for everybody else, if this is not what you want to really spend your time on, why would you do it? Right?
No, I get what you're trying to say. It doesn't make sense to haggle for a small amount of money because at the end of the day, it's not worth your time.
I mean, so.
But here's a question: not worth your time has to have a concrete definition, has to have a specific number.
Right. So very simple. Okay. For people who get salary, right? I mean, you work about 40 hours a week.
Yes.
And there are approximately 50 weeks in
2 weeks of vacation, correct?
Year. So you work 2,000 hours in a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Easy calculation.
What is your income out of those 2,000 hours, right? After tax.
Okay.
Right?
Some X number.
Whatever your income, yearly income after tax, if you divide by 2,000, you get the hourly value of your time. So if your income is like 6 lakh per year.
Approximate, an assumption.
Pre-tax.
Pre-tax.
Right? So with taxes, after taxes, your time is worth 275 rupees per hour. Right?
Okay.
If it is 10 lakh, then we are talking 400 rupees. Right? And it keeps going up like this. Right? Which means that if your time is worth 400 rupees per hour and you spend an hour to save 200 rupees on something, that's a really bad use of your time.
Yeah.
right? I'll give you a couple of examples.
Please, okay.
When I and my wife were younger, right, we got a pitch from one of those time-sharing holiday things.
Yeah.
And
the one where they give free food, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
They said, you just come, no obligation to buy, but if you listen to our product, if you understand it, at the end of it, we will give you free lunch.
Yeah.
Right?
And the lunch is never great, although it is free.
No, it was good lunch, right?
Oh, he went to an expensive timeshare holiday person.
Yeah. But the thing is that I wasted 2 hours, right? And we got a lunch which was probably worth 300 rupees per person.
Okay.
I was if we had thought of the time value of the money value of our time, it was just a very bad deal.
Yeah.
Right? We should have just said no. And most of you probably do say no to such things, right?
Yeah.
I'll give another example which makes it clear in a different way, right? This comes from James Clear. We are big fans of James Clear here, right?
Yes, we are.
So he was looking for some item which was not easy to find, right?
Okay.
I did a online search. He found it $15, but it was in UK. And shipping that item from UK to US where he was $45 extra. Right?
Okay.
Now anybody is going to see $15 item, $45 shipping, and going to say, you know what, forget it.
Yeah.
So he continued his search locally and he found it. Oh my God, there's a store here where I can go and buy it in person for $15. And the store was 1 hour away.
Okay.
And he didn't feel bad about, going 1 hour, picking up the item and coming back just to save 45 on shipping. Right?
Okay.
Now, again, very bad use of his time, right? As long as his time is worth more than
$45
per half hour.
Yeah, per half hour. Correct.
Right?
So,
or whatever that calculation. Yeah?
Yeah.
So the point is that sometimes we just feel this is morally wrong. How can they charge me so much? And then we go to great lengths to get that charge reduced, and it's just not worth the time.
I get it, but was that hour that he took to drive to get that item a part of his working hour schedule, or was it because when we were calculating the money value of the time, then we were calculating it based on the hours worked.
Well, let me put it this way, right? That value is the amount of money you can easily make with your current skill level.
Correct.
Right? That is the amount of money the world is willing to give you per hour.
Correct.
Right? The only reason you don't work doing that for all 24 hours of the day is because you want to sleep, you want to spend time with your family, you want to do things you enjoy. The reason why you're earning the money. Right?
Correct.
But the point is that 1 hour of work is going to get you at least that much. The world values it that much. In fact, to work more than 8 hours beyond that, you probably want to be paid more because they are dragging you away from your family.
Leisure time, your family, yes.
So in fact, your time value of money should be more than that, but let's stick with just what your current
Let's stick with the lowest value that you can
exactly.
possibly earn. So yeah.
Because the thing is, the only reason you are not working the rest of the time is because presumably you are doing things that you enjoy, you are doing things you want to do. Now, if you are a weirdo who enjoys going to 4 different shops to find the cheapest version of
listen, I tend to think of it in terms of cost benefit analysis.
Exactly, there is no benefit. I mean, the benefit is like 200 rupees and the cost
dopamine is a very real benefit, let me tell you. Dopamine and serotonin are real benefits. They're useful.
So if you
and adrenaline.
No, adrenaline is not a benefit. Okay, if you get stressed out over the price, actually that is much worse for you, right?
All right,
if you enjoy, I know a few people who really enjoy going to 4 stores and then getting 100 rupees cheaper, and then for the next 2 months they will be telling that story to everyone, right? So the value they get out of it is infinite, right?
Everybody knows people like that.
Yeah, but if
some people are thinking of me when they are talking about whatever.
No, so let's talk about normal people, right? Who don't enjoy these things. You should not be wasting time on such activities. Right?
Fine. But there is a different thrill in standing in a line overnight for the latest Harry Potter to come out. Although now the situation is quite different with stuff that the author has been saying. Anyway, moving on.
So I mean, US has a whole bunch of other interesting examples of this, right? Waiting in line for hours for a Black Friday sale. Just to...
At this point, it is basically a tradition to wait outside a big store.
I mean, or, doing like a plumbing job at home because you don't want to pay the plumber. I mean, the good thing is in India, nobody thinks like this. You're just, happy to pay the plumber.
In fact, now that I think about it, India has a lot of spaces or a lot of situations where we happily give our money to someone else so we don't have to spend the time. The plumbers being one example.
But that is only for a bunch of standard things for which there are well-known people providing those services.
Yeah, I was thinking of agents.
Yeah, for agents. But in your regular work, I bet there is a whole bunch of things you do which are boring.
Okay, yes.
Why don't you pay someone to do the boring parts for you so you can focus on the interesting parts? In fact, you can spend more time doing the more value-added parts of your job. Very few people think like that. It's only when a person becomes like a fancy executive and he or she suddenly realizes that, let me have an executive assistant to do all these things for me. Why don't you have an executive assistant right now?
I do. I have 3 of them. They are called Swiggy, Dunzo and Big Basket.
Well, buying food is not a part of your job. I'm talking about things you do on the job which are boring, right? Or routine, or somebody else could do it. Doesn't require your brain.
Because ChatGPT only came out in November, man. Give me a break.
Yeah. So in fact, ChatGPT is going to be everybody's executive assistant. We did an episode on that. Please check it out.
Yes.
But yes, think of the value of your time and then think about what do you spend your time on and is it actually that much value?
True,
right?
but
otherwise outsource it.
Outsource it, yes, but also outsourcing it makes sense only if you're going to be able to use that time to invest somewhere else and make money.
Yes.
Otherwise,
at the very least, you can invest in improving your skills, which will make money next year.
Right.
So, just generally.
Because what we also have to remember at this point is that when I outsource it, it also is an expense on my account.
Correct, yeah. So
and that expense has to also tally with the entire budget that I set out for the year.
Correct, the assumption is that you can, make more money with the time you saved. If you are a freelancer, that's relatively easy. Just get more customers.
Yeah.
If you are a salaried employee, that might not be easy, but what it means is that you can do much more valuable things in the job, so you get a promotion faster, right? You rise faster.
Yeah, so that is something that everybody, I guess, will have to figure out for themselves. But here's the question, and we've been talking about salaried people, but what about people who are not earning money?
So I think an excellent example here is women.
Exactly, that's the one. That's the thing I'm thinking about.
Stay-at-home mom. Right?
Correct.
I think of it this way, right? That the reason the person is at home is because this is what she wants to do.
Okay.
Right? And so the time value of her money should roughly be the time value of her husband's money, because the reason the husband is able to do all of that stuff is because she is at home.
Correct.
Right? So just because you're not making money officially doesn't mean that your time isn't valuable, right? So in fact, figuring out the time value of money can be tricky in cases where you are not just a salaried employee, right?
Yeah.
So there is an article again by James Clear which gives 6 different ways of computing the time value of your money. Check it out in the links. It is interesting.
The concept of figuring out the dollar value of your time or money value of your time makes sense only once you reach a certain level, certain amount of income. Because for someone who's making barely enough to get into a tax bracket, the worst tax bracket, it doesn't really make sense to think of dollar values, because
no, it does make sense always, right? The only thing is that when the dollar value of money is small enough, the number of places where you are wasting time reduces, right? Because, if spending a few minutes on getting the rickshaw charge reduced,
correct,
right? If you're earning less than that, then it was totally time worth well spent, right?
Yeah.
So just keep in mind what is your time value of your money. So doing
money value of your time.
Yeah. I mean, the money value of your time, that calculation you have to do only once. And then every time you're doing some activity where you're wasting time to save money, you can just quickly take just a few seconds to decide whether this is worth doing or not, right?
Because I was also trying to think of, are there any situations where the concept of a dollar value of time or money value of time shouldn't really be a factor. One example that you gave initially was when it's an activity you enjoy doing. Maybe even if it is something like haggling.
Yes. If you enjoy doing it, go ahead.
Okay.
Right? Second is that if the time isn't really wasted, right? So another example is that you're traveling somewhere and there are two different options. One is a direct but more expensive thing, which is taking 6 hours, and another is an indirect one which takes 10 hours, but it is much cheaper. Should you go with 6 hours or 10 hours, right? One way to look at it is time value of my 4 hours, how much am I saving, right? On the other hand, if the 10-hour thing involves that I can do 4 extra hours of reading a book, then it's not time wasted.
Or it could also be, I've already chalked out an entire time period for which I'm not available for work. So 6 hours or 10 hours doesn't really matter.
I don't understand this not available for work thing, right? As in, if you are not available for work, you should be enjoying that time or investing in your future, right? If you're just wasting it in an airport line, then it's, it cost you.
Okay, wasting in that sense, yes. But I was thinking more along the lines of, okay, my days from say Monday to Friday are already scheduled for travel and whatever else I'm doing within that period.
No, but see, just because you scheduled it doesn't mean that if you get an extra 4 hours there, you can't use it now. Just have to sit like this because, I scheduled.
Yeah, but if I'm going to read in the train, I'll read at the airport. How does it make a difference?
Well, no, it depends. I mean, if you can read at the airport, yeah, but the security guy who has like hands up looking for things is not going to let you read.
What kind of airports do you go to, man? What kind of airports do you go to?
I mean, there's a bunch of things where you can't do anything with that time and it's really wasted, whereas sometimes it is not wasted.
All right. No, essentially, one of the thoughts that I had was a dollar value will probably change depending on the kind of activity that you're doing or the kind of time that you're utilizing.
Absolutely. So there is one quote I want to read, right?
Sure.
Related to money and efficiently allocating your money.
Okay.
So this is by Edward Luttwak, and he says, I believe that one ought to have only as much market efficiency as one needs.
Okay.
Because everything that we value in human life, right, is within the realm of inefficiency, love, family, attachment, community, culture, old habits, comfortable old shoes.
Yes.
Right? You can't count these things in terms of money.
I was right.
So do not look at the price when one of those things is involved, right? Friends, family, community, culture, freedom, impact, all of these things.
Or basically haggling, if haggling is something you like.
Exactly, yeah. The other way of looking at it is, money is good to think about, right? You need to have money to be able to do the things you want to do. But do not forget that this is a Tim O'Reilly quote. Money is like gasoline during a road trip. Okay, you don't want to run out of gas on your trip, but your tour is not a tour of gas stations. Right? The whole point of the trip is to see other things, not just gas station to gas station. So the point isn't money. The point is ultimately to use the money for things you enjoy doing. Yeah.
Fair enough. Me personally, I'm sure Naveen will probably not entirely agree with this, but me personally, I tend to think of my money value of time in 3 different segments. One is the work value, one is my leisure value, and one is my family time value.
Yes.
So my work time value is the lowest of these 3. My leisure time value is like a little on top of that because I consider that as equivalent to overtime. And if you want to take me away from my family time, you will have to pay a lot more than my usual whatever numbers, usual rates.
Yes, so next time you choose to go to 4 different stores to save 200 rupees. Think about whether it is taking away from your family or from
Oh no, I
your
take my
leisure.
family along.
Yes.
I take my family along and make it like a leisure time out of it. So yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but this is a very interesting perspective to look at the next time you want to spend just that little bit of extra time doing, to save just a little bit more. Because that just a little bit more takes a lot more out of other places and other moments in your life. So don't do that.
Yes.
Shrikant, Naveen,
Thank
this
you.
is Future IQ.